So, all right, our only review of the day is going to be for Avatar: The Last Airbender, Book 3. We've been reviewing each book each week there in anticipation for the live action Avatar: The Last Airbender series coming up. And by the way, we just hit our goal on Twitch of having more than 350 followers. So we're going to be doing a review of M. Night Shyamalan's
Ooh.
Avatar: The Last Airbender there. So we did hit that goal there. So yeah, like I said, been reviewing each book of Avatar: Last Airbender, the cartoon show there, in anticipation for the live action one coming out on Netflix, which is coming out next week. And yeah, so this is the final season. Man, I was sad to kind of watch this because it's like it's over, it's done. I had seen this before, but getting up to the end of it, it's like, man, it's always sad to let some good peak go like this.
Mhm.
So in this final season, so kind of in the second season, which we reviewed, in book 2, which was Earth, you had it where it was kind of almost like The Empire Strikes
Strikes
Back.
back.
Yeah, which Nick made that kind of comparison there of the show where they were defeated. Team Avatar, you had Azula, and the Fire Nation conquer the Earth Kingdom, which Bang Sensei, which seemed to be the main hub there, main kind of one of the main defenders against the Fire Nation. So they kind of took it over from the inside. You had Azula almost kill Aang there by shooting lightning at him, which is now blocking his ability to go into the Avatar state. Um, you have it where tons of now a lot of the allies of Team Avatar have been captured now in prison. So yeah, they're just kind of on the run basically.
Mhm.
They're away from the Fire Nation and trying to figure out a plan of what they're going to do to finally take down the Fire Nation and the Fire Lord Ozai here, who you much more see here in this final season than you do in any other previous season. And you kind of talked about that a little bit of discussing the live action show of how maybe they're going to bring more of a presence to Fire Lord Ozai. What do you think of the show not really too much focusing on Fire Lord Ozai and kind of saving him for the final season?
I think it's good for the show. Uh, and while I do think like there's still like better ways to handle this kind of villain, especially in the third season, his reveal is great. Especially how like he doesn't really get revealed until the final, uh, third act. But like and then like episode 1 of season 3, Zuko finally like confronts his father, and like how uh it's kind of like just a guy, and that's great. Despite being voiced by Mark Hamill, doesn't have much character, but like still, the show does manage to, because it has kind of like cider villains or like villains on the road towards it, like Zhao and Azula and Zuko. We're more focused with that, and the show, to a degree, kind of frames him more of like almost like a in between like a force of nature and kind of a representation of the Fire Nation. uh, there's a bit more mixed stuff with that on my end, with kind of like Ozai's like character, and to be fair, like that's common. This is a fairly common criticism of the show. Like, even at the end, Ozai kind of like doesn't have much character, and but it does he does fulfill his role well, in the story.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, he does. I mean, I kind of wish they maybe explored a little bit more of him because I
Mhm,
do think he is kind of just bad guy in it
mhm,
a little bit. I mean, he's a good bad guy. He's a good evil kind of villain there in the show of kind of a force that they need to fight and a very deadly force there. And then there's a conversation, kind of a moral dilemma that kind of comes up in this season of whether or not Aang should kill Fire Lord Ozai or not. Um, and especially since in this season you have the upcoming of Sozin's Comet,
mhm.
which is an opportunity where the firebender's powers increase tenfold when that kind of happens, and it's kind of opposite of what was in book 2, where they were trying to attack the Fire Nation during the eclipse when the people with firebending abilities lose their powers completely. So that was kind of an opportunity they thought would have been a good strike and good to kind of do that. Also in this book, Aang is trying to find a firebending teacher so he can master the last element there. Interesting because like I said, each season is named after an element: water, earth, and then this one, fire. He's already mastered air already, being part of the air nomad people. Do you think they should have spent a little bit more time of him learning the element? Because it seemed like how quickly is he actually
A few,
learning it?
yeah, that's kind of a thing. I think people forget that Aang, even for an Avatar standard, is kind of a prodigy, because at age 10 he became a master airbender. Uh, and even though like all avatars are gifted, even in just a few motions, he was able to do a lot of the basics of waterbending in guitar. So he's elevated from that, uh, and then he mastered waterbending in a matter of like a few months, and then even though he became like a moderate earthbender, he was still able to master like several like sub techniques of earthbending. Uh, I don't, and then he was very proficient with firebending as opposed to like what a lot of people might say, but I think it's something you have to sacrifice when you give it such a. People forget like how short time is in this universe. It's the whole 3 seasons of Avatar happened in the span of under a year.
Yeah.
Uh, maybe a whole year. I can't recall, but I think it's under a year. And so the characters are like, like they have to like really. It's one of those things that when you're watching it, you don't really think about, but like when you put it in context, it's like they're really jumping face for a lot of this, and they're all like, there's not enough time. So yeah, but it does. They're also setting it during Sozin's comet, and Aang's firebending abilities would be increased. So that is a fun reason as to like why he can probably do a bit more firebending against Ozai than he would be normally. Because despite being a firebender, it's not like he's immune to flames.
Right. Yeah, so because yeah, you're right. Like it takes place like kind of over the course of a little bit over a year or a year exactly, because they have to. Because like even in the beginning of season one, they introduced like we have to do this before the end of like summer
Mhm.
comes. And if we don't, yeah, before the Silson's comment, because that was always like a looming thing there, a threat there. Because if they do that, the
Yeah.
Fire Nation would be kind of incredibly powerful. And then I was watching a friend of the channel, and then a guy that Macabre.
Mhm.
He also did a discussion about Avatar, where he was discussing like I mean, he's basically Fire Lord Ozai is Fire Hitler. I mean,
Yeah.
Fire Hitler. He's trying to go around like his mission is to conquer all these nations. Now he feels like, okay, when this comet is going to come, we're going to dominate everything. And that leaves he's going to leave his daughter Azula in charge of the Fire Nation, her be Fire Lord there. And then with this season also it's big because you see the switching of alliances here of Zuko, who at first, we saw at the end of season two, he got what he wanted. He,
Mhm.
got back into the Fire Nation. He, got back from being banished. He's his father's right hand man now. He's on the council meetings, on the war meetings, but he's still not happy, still not satisfied.
Yeah.
Even with all that, do you think Zuko probably has the best arc in the entire show?
Oh, definitely. That's kind of even almost like a criticism of the show of like, especially in season 3, is that Zuko's storyline and arc is almost too good. Like it's so interesting that like it takes away almost from the main character's arc. And and of course there are other series where it's like, well, I like the side character more, but I don't think it's really done like this. Where Zuko's basically like the secondary main character to a degree. The only one that would be maybe a bit more of a main character would be Katara, maybe. Uh, but it's like that's one of the things that everyone takes away from the show of just like how well Zuko's arc is and how like much it just like almost everything about it is just like perfect. Like anyone who's like made like a video or like research about like character arcs, it's like everything about Zuko is just like done to like it's near perfection in a lot of degrees. And uh it's like of course the main character usually isn't the most main character in the show like this, but it's just one of those things of like uh Aang just isn't as interesting or compelling as a character as Zuko. And because Zuko just like not only does he have all that like bad stuff, but like he also has far more agency. And that's somewhat of a theme of the show of like the fact that Aang didn't want to be the Avatar. And they both have like a destiny thrust upon them. But Zuko's able to have more of a complex relationship with his quote unquote destiny. Uh, but yeah, it's one of those things of like he's like even if he's not like your favorite character, a lot of people will consider him like the best written character of the show.
Mm. Is he your favorite character?
I would say he's probably my favorite character. He's up there. If not, it's probably him or Iroh or Katara.
Okay. I'm gonna get into Katara a little bit there. But yeah, Zuko, masterful way his arc was done throughout this whole kind of 3 seasons here of the way it kind of concludes. Like I said, he thinks he's finally got what he wants, but you do have Uncle Iroh who helped protect Team Avatar at the end of book 3 there. So that label that got him being a traitor and him being imprisoned.
Mhm.
And you see that, you think that he's lost all hope there, but you see old Uncle Iroh can't never get him down. He's able to still kind of maintain that old ways there, which was really great. A great episode here, I think, which is comparable to the really great episode in the last season, Zuko Alone. I think the beach episode.
Mm.
Um, which focused on, Zuko, Azula, May, and Ty Lee, there, and you really get to see explore more of their characters, especially with Azula, who we just kinda saw as being, this really crazy kind of on the warpath
Mhm.
villain that you see. You get a lot more depth of her, especially you see that she actually is a human being
Mhm.
and is just, a girl there.
She is
Uh
14. You do forget. You do think the show forgets that as well.
Yeah, I mean, she isn't just a war criminal all the time.
Yeah.
She is also still a girl there, and they do actually have some really great scenes there. Do you have any kind of favorite episode there of this season?
Season 3, let's see. Let's try to think. Uh, of course, the Raiders of the Southern Water Tribe. It's up there. Let's see. I really like the first episode of this season. Uh, Puppet Master's pretty good, but it's not my favorite. But yeah, I do think kind of a flaw of this season is that it kind of wants to go back a bit to like season 1, but we're at the point where it's like that clock hand is just like so close to like 0. It's like, do you guys really have time for this? That's like, you want to have more like fun, almost like filler episodes. It's like, it feels like you're kind of like wasting time here to a bit. That was mainly the thing with like kind of like Aang like hanging out with like the Fire Nation kids. It's like, it seems like there's a more important plot like that you guys should be focusing on. Especially with that is kind of a big criticism I have of like, uh where Zuko's like, he reveals to the gang that, uh his dad's going to use the Silson comet to just basically burn down the Earth Kingdom.
Yeah.
And it was like, I was planning on fighting him after the summer. It's like, why didn't you tell us, Zuko? But it's like, yeah, why didn't you tell them, Zuko? That's like super important.
And I think the episode where he goes like where because after they lose in book 2, they kind of blend into they kind of go undercover as Fire
Mhm.
Nation people. Like they steal a Fire Nation ship, they wear Fire Nation clothes.
Yeah, I love that first episode. Yeah.
Which they kinda do that then, and then at this point, early on in the season, people think that the Avatar is actually dead. People think
Mhm.
that Aang is dead, and Azula killed him there. So the episode I'm trying to find the episode actually where he kinda blends in as a kid there. I'm trying to find the exact episode
It's
there.
the one. Are you talking about the one where like the dancing band? Oh, the headband. That's what it's
Him.
called.
Yeah, the headband. I could kinda see that. I mean, even in kind of fillerish episodes of Avatar, it still kind of is important because it still shows, like, the kids of the Fire Nation and, like, the
Mhm.
propaganda there, they kind of that gets put upon them and why they believe the things that they believe, and that, he's kinda helping them be kids again. It's like,
Yeah.
so he's kinda breaking that out, and
Yeah.
also it kinda reminds you that he never really got to be a kid.
Mhm.
He's had these kind of great responsibilities kind of thrusted upon him there at an early age, and all of them have. I mean, Katara, Sokka, there, basically being tasked with saving the world. And you see that a lot with Katara's character of, very early on in her life after losing her mother, she got thrusted more into,
A
being
mother
a
figure.
mother there, a mother figure for the tribe and everything like that. Um, and kind of a lot sacrificed her own needs there, her own kind of desires. And that's even kind of a joke in the series of how they make fun of her for being like the mother of the group there. There's even a riff there between
Yeah.
her and Toph, which I think was in
The
with
runaway.
the Runaway episode there, where basically Toph is scamming, all these people in the kingdom, and there's a wanted post of her, and then yeah, I mean, it's basically like she's pretty much the mother of the group, the boss of the group, everything like that. And she has some great moments in this season. The Puppet Master episode that you mentioned, where you find out about bloodbending, like the story of that old woman and what she went through. I thought that was kind of similar, even to like the Jet storyline in season 1, What do you think about Katara's arc here in season 3?
I think it's really good. I think a lot of people kind of undervalue Katara because not only is she like people's like, oh, she's just kind of nice. It's not that she's nice; it's that she's kind of like she's way too mature for her age. But like you mentioned, it was because it was like thrust upon her, and she has to like take all these responsibilities. She's kind of the unofficial leader of the group. Because in book two, like when basically they're in the desert, Toph can't see uh Aang's mad that Appa's gone, Sokka's like on cactus troops. Katara basically keeps that whole group together, and she comes up with like a lot of plans. She's the one who gets us everyone moving, stuff like that. And like, she's not presented as like overly bossy, but it's like it's one of those things of like, if it was just that, maybe I can see it. But Katara has like genuine angst and like rage deep inside of her with uh some of her views of like the Fire Nation, like uh her mother's killer as well, like the especially the long grudge she holds against Zuko for like a good amount of episodes, and is until like Zuko helps her confront her mother's killer that she's able to kind of resolve that a bit. And what I really loved about that episode was like Aang's like, you did the right thing. Forgiveness is the first step to virtue, like whatever. I think Katara says, but I didn't forgive him. Like I'll never forgive him. It's like, yeah, have that character have that moment. Like don't just she's not just the nice healer. She's like she might be the second most powerful bender in the group, to be honest.
Yeah. It's tough because I was watching that video by Macabre, and he was talking about whether or not Katara, like, her bending abilities, because there's in
Oh, we
book
got into an argument.
Oh, really? Okay, because
Yeah.
in book 1, you see that a lot of their goal of wanting to go with Aang, Sokka, and Katara is like he's gonna go to the
Mhm.
Northern Water Tribe and find a water bending teacher, and Katara was like, "Well, I wanna learn water bending as well, and then I also wanna go there." And when they get there, obviously, there's that situation there where the teacher's sexist and, he
Mhm.
doesn't wanna teach a girl and everything like that, and then he eventually kinda even though that was kinda weird the way it kinda is handled there of like, "Oh, well, hey, you're related to this girl I had a crush on back in."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I guess I'll teach you, and even though, like, that's not really too settled, but anyway, but it's like her abilities and skills as the show progresses. I mean, guess again, it goes to, like, the level of training that you don't really see that much of in the
Mhm.
show. Like, again, with Aang, it's like, how quickly does he learn these elements? Like, you
Mhm.
see a couple of scenes where he is practicing and he is doing it, but it's like, how quickly does she become, I guess, a water bending
Yeah.
master or everything like that?
I do think it's important to know kind of two things. One, like even from the first episode, it kind of showed that Katara had like a lot of like kind of strength as a bender. She wasn't able to channel the right way. Like she even like broke that glacier just by like basically yelling at Sokka. So like and she was trained by herself. So obviously, like once she got like a proper teacher, even Zuko makes that comment of like, yeah, once you kind of get a proper teacher in this to point you in the right direction, she just kind of like skyrocketed it. But like I like that her arc is kind of complete by book one because then she could have like more individual arcs and like more diverse like kind of stories than the other characters. And she's probably I would say she's probably like the most flexible character of the group to put them in like different situations. Because Sokka and Toph, you kind of know what's going to happen. It's just going to be mostly comedic and like yelling and stuff like that. But like Katara can like she could have more of a thing with Sokka. She could have more of a thing with Toph. She could have more of a thing with Aang. Of course, she could have a thing with Zuko. And like she has like she's a very good character that as like a moderator, almost.
Yeah. And how's it going there, Rated M for Immaturity, man? How's it going there? Thanks for stopping by, man. Much appreciated. Yeah, she is there, and I think Katara. I mean, I don't know if you were, into it much, like back when you were a kid, or when you were watching it back when it first came on.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I watched the show when it came on. I did accidentally skip an episode, which was kind of funny watching the show back as adults. Like, I don't remember this. But yeah, it was a two-parter book one. But like, yeah. Uh, what else was there? But I didn't watch the show like week to week. But I did. It was like airing when I was young. And I do remember the bloodbending episode, the Puppet Master episode. That was a big deal, and that was like everyone was like kind of like that was what the kids kind of talked about at school afterwards. Like, God damn.
Yeah. Do you remember anybody? Because apparently I was looking online. People said that there was a lot of hated Katara at first, like when the
Oh,
first. Yeah.
I don't remember at first, but I do know like kind of now. People are like, ah, she complains so much about her dead mom. It's like she's 14. And
Uh-huh.
also it's like really not that much, but it's also like it's a motivator for her. Kind of the same of like it is the same as like Zuko's scar or like Zuko talking about his mother as well. Like he has those same kind of angst moments, or like when Zuko brings up his honor, he's really talking about his dad at that moment. He talks about them all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you could say I mean, it is a big motivator. I mean, everybody has that. I mean, a lot with Zuko is,
Mhm.
the scar and his dad and, coming back from being banished. There's Uncle Iroh and about,
Mhm.
honor and, tea and, everybody's kinda got a little bit of their thing that kinda got going on there, in the show. So yeah. And then Ray Immaturity says Zuko definitely talks about his parents more.
Maybe.
You would say there. Do you think this being 3 seasons, you think that's kinda enough? You think they coulda maybe done an extra season?
Honestly, I think the first 3 seasons of Avatar are kind of like the best you're gonna it's kind of like a happy accident because originally they did plan for, like, more seasons and stuff like that, but, like and you can see that in the comics, and, like, a lot of people are very mixed on the comics, kind of the same as Korra. I'm kind of in between on them, but it's like I do think it's one of those things of like, hey, you get this amount of time. It's like they were able to squeeze out like 3 shows, uh like 3 seasons like this good, stuff like that. And they of course like some wrenches were like thrown into the gears every now and then. Like very sadly, Mako Yomatsu, he passed away. He did manage to record all his lines for book 2. Uh and but it does work out with like kind of them hiring Greg Baldwin and then having Iroh be like imprisoned and kind of like shunning Zuko for a bit, like for a few months or a
Yeah,
few weeks. So that works out more, and like that worked out in the favor of the show. Uh,
yeah.
there was a bunch of weird stuff in the beginning that they planned for, like Toph was going to be a boy, and like there's going to be a love triangle between him, Katara, and Aang, and Azula was going to be a boy as well. Like I think he was actually like she was Prince Azulan in the original draft.
Oh, okay. Interesting because when they do that episode, which is
The
the play
play,
ep uh,
Ember Island players.
which was really good. Again, that's, a great episode to poke fun at the fans of the show and then themselves. And there is in that play, Toph is a man,
Mhm.
like a big muscular
Oh
man,
yeah.
in that play there. So that was kinda interesting there. Also, and it kinda brings up in the play, they also do have it where Zuko and Katara are more of a thing than
Mhm.
rather than Katara and Aang. Um, did you kinda see that a little bit more? Like Zuko and Katara kind of could have been a better matchup than
Oh yeah, I think it's not even the. I think it's just kind of the writers in general. Like romance is not their strong suit. You kind of see this a lot more in Korra, but where romance is more of a big option. But it's like mm, couples in Avatar really aren't that interesting for the most part. I think it also might have to do with the ages because Aang's 12
yeah.
and Katara's 14. It's like I guess that can work, but it's like it like some anime is able to get away with it because like the character's like 16. It's like that. It's at that level of like kind of like blossoming into maturity. But it's like when you think of like even Avatar has a joke of it, like in season 1 where Zuko's like, "You're just a child," and then goes, "You're just a teenager."
Mm.
uh, yeah, it's that's an element. I think it's because also in Avatar, all the characters kind of get paired up with their most like vanilla option, if that makes sense. Like it's almost like first girl syndrome. Like the first girl you talk, like the first girl the main boy talks to, that's the girl he's going to end up marrying.
Mhm.
And yeah, I do think they do make their relationship more interesting in the following show, Korra, showing like the kind of the flaws of that Aang would have as a parent. But yeah, Katara and Aang's kind of boring. Sokka and Suki's kind of boring for me. Zuko and Mai are kind of boring. I'm not even saying have Zuko end up with like Mai, even like just have Zuko end up with like Ty Lee. That'd be interesting.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, you had that who's Sokka ended up with Suki at the end, who's the Kyoshi warrior who makes a return here in season 3, who I thought, I mean, at the end of because I couldn't because I watching, I was like, man, at the end of season 2, I was like, I couldn't remember if she died or not. I couldn't
Yeah.
remember that because at the end there's the whole thing where she takes over and impersonates the Kyoshi
Mhm.
warriors. Did the rest of her team die?
No,
Or
no, they were in a different prison.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah, they were in a different prison because she's
yeah,
the one that the Kyoshi was the one that told Sokka's dad
mhm,
about him and everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, think about the pairings. They did. Also, there was apparently people kind of were thinking maybe Aang and Toph could have been a
A
thing.
little, yeah. I mean, they are closer in age, uh, 12 and 10. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And Sokka's probably still with Suki. It's been a while since I've read the comics, but I do know there was like a weird rough patch with them, and like Suki's like kind of flirting with Zuko. Uh, and like there was like a moment of like an implication that Zuko might have gotten with Suki, but you know, that's weird. Uh,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and you see kind of like we're gonna get into it later about like all the fates of the
oh
characters.
yeah,
Kind of in the final episode there, but yeah, I love. You mentioned the Puppet Master episode, which
yeah,
you have Katara who learns about the story of this woman, and then this was when we get the introduction to bloodbending.
yes.
There, which is gonna be especially important later on in the sequel series, the Legend of Korra.
Ooh.
There of a certain villain there. Did you? I never got your opinion on Legend of Korra. What's your thoughts on Legend of Korra?
Uh, I like it. It's undeniably flawed, and it's super like fun to talk about. But like, I really like Korra. I do get there is a bunch of issues with it, but like some of it is overblown by like angry fans, some of it isn't. Actually, me and a buddy actually did a podcast not too long ago. More so talked about kind of like the making of Korra and like kind of the themes and representation of it. Uh, and, like we were able to talk about like what she does, what Korra does better than like Avatar. And we came up with the great title, "She's Incorrigible."
Okay.
But yeah,
Yeah, watching this series, it does make me wanna go back and watch it because it's been a minute since I have seen it,
mhm,
so I've forgotten a lot of things about it.
yeah,
So after finishing Avatar, it doesn't make me wanna go back, and this was the spin-off sequel series that's set
yeah,
70 years
mhm.
after the events of the first one. And I think right now she is still the current Avatar right now, Korra is. Um,
Yes, they are kind of talking about making another Avatar with an Earthbending one that might be set in the future, but like everyone's like, very few people know what's going on with that.
yeah. And I think because only one of the creators from the first show worked on this one. Like, didn't the creator like one of
Mike
them left?
Dante.
Yeah, I think one of them left like halfway through, right?
I could see that there was definitely issues like halfway through the production of it. Yeah, and to be fair, Nickelodeon did not give the show any favors because originally it was like we want a sequel to Avatar. It's like okay, but it's like you get one season and it can't, and they're like okay, it's like so they wrote one season, but then they also said like now we want like three more seasons, but they can't be like an overarching plot like the first Avatar. So it's like they had to make more like three individual like storylines and threats.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me yeah, it does make me wanna kinda go back and, yeah, watch that one.
Mhm.
But yeah, I do love the beach episode, and I do love the Puppet Master episode, which were done by Joaquim dos Santos, who also did the Spider-Verse,
Oh yeah.
my movie as well. So, yeah, shout out to him, he also worked on that. You see a lot of kinda really good kinda people. Dave Filoni, he did a lot of the episodes of the 1st season,
Mhm.
there. People know as the Star Wars guy, he did a lot of work on Star Wars there, so you see
Totally fits his MO.
yeah. Rating for Maturity said Greg Baldwin stepped up as a coup as well later on.
Oh yeah, I mean he's you just kind of gotta get the guy because he's kind of closest you can get to Mako now. But yeah, uh, and he has a lot of fun with it, so that's good.
Yeah. Talk about some of our favorite episodes. Do you have any real kind of weaker episode of this season?
This season, let me think. There's trying to think. Nightmares and Daydreams. I would say was probably the worst one because I get that it's like an anticipation thing, but it's like it's fairly dull. It's like yeah, we know Ain't stressed about fighting Ozai.
Mm.
And stuff like that. And I just didn't find the dream sequences interesting. I didn't find the comedy that funny. Uh, Sokka's master, I wasn't a huge fan of because it's like yeah, it almost feels like a way of just setting up the White Lotus and like uh, I think in rewatch I don't think Sokka's as strong as a character as some people make out. I don't think his arc really works as well as like some of the others like Zuko or Ains or Katara's. I'm trying to think.
You saying Sokka's arc didn't work as well as
No,
both?
yeah, but also not because but it's like it's weird that the I what was the I don't remember the name of it, but there's a two-parter of like a prison island. It's where they go to Alcatraz, basically, like the Boiling Rock, and it's like that doesn't feel like it should be two parts.
Mm. Yeah, and that's where they go and kinda he's gonna go and break out his dad.
Yeah,
And it almost becomes a joke that everybody has these life-changing
yeah,
experiences going with Zuko, like Katara, Sokka, Aang, they all have these, and Toph was like, I wanna have a life-changing
yeah.
experience with, Zuko there."
I'm not going on the trip. Yeah.
Where, yeah, he goes to break out his dad, and then he also Suki's there as well, so he goes
Hmm.
to break them out. And some pivotal things happen in that episode.
Yeah. I think the most it kind of does is kind of lead up to the next episode where it's revealed that Azula has a bunch of warships, like improved warships, uh, that are like that it's going to be used during the Sozin's Comet.
Mm, yeah. And then with that episode, Boiling Rock, you also see May and Ty Lee betray
Hmm.
Azula there, and that kind of starts her to descend to her going to madness even more
Yeah,
there, where she kind of loses her two best friends. And Raiden Fury says they're only crushes at this point in reference to when we talk about the
a
relationship
little, a
issues
little.
there. And then Raven Trudy says, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't the creators consulting on the M. Night movie one of the reasons the show didn't keep going? Like they didn't have time to do both or something like that? Um,
Maybe I don't remember that, but it's also like, in fairness to the M Night movie, I don't think it's almost like David Lynch's Dune movie to a degree. Like if you want to fit everything in the Dune book into that movie, it's just like a Herculean task that I doubt like it's not going to make any fan happy. Like any hardcore fan, it's just kind of the same with the M Night Shyamalan movie. It's like I remember like there's behind the scenes where he's like, I really wanted to add like Kyoshi Warriors and like other episode stuff, but he's like, I just didn't have time.
yeah. So this was never planned to be like a trilogy. It was only planned to just they were just kind of going to just do one movie, or was it planned to actually them to do a trilogy?
I think it was planned for them to do a trilogy, but it
Okay.
was like, yeah, with each movie would be like a whole book.
Okay.
And the girl from the Transformers movies is in it, the one who plays Mark Wahlberg's daughter.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, apparently her dad's like a Subway CEO or something.
Oh, yeah, I heard that it was like the producer's kid. That's the reason she got in the movie or something. Or he was like a high profile
Yeah,
guy, and then
I
that's
love the costumes in this. They look great, and yeah,
mm, yeah.
I like the guy who plays Iroh. He does a very good job, and same with Zuko's actor.
Mm. And who's Dev Patel in this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Slumdog Millionaire.
yeah. Who's gonna be Monkey Man? He's gonna be in an action movie. John Wick.
Yeah, produced by Jordan Peele.
Yeah, it looks badass. That looks really
Yeah.
cool. I can't wait to see that. Um, So yeah, you saw that kind of the boiling, like I said, kind of Azula descending into madness. That was
Mhm.
kind of like the start of it there because she's so used to having people
Yeah.
fear her and be scared of her there. And a part of that reason, the betrayal, is that May, she's siding with Zuko, who turned his back on the Fire Nation. She's in love with him. Ty Lee being a friend of May, because Azula and her were about to basically square off, and then May used her kind of
Sheep blocking.
chi blocking abilities there, which I like that they weren't also benders like May and Tyler. They had their own like unique set of skills, like May with the knives and Kelly with the more kung fu type ability there, the chi blocking, karate there stuff, which thought that was really good there. What do you think about Azula's arc here? Because some people kind of complain of like they just kind of just made her crazy here, and then at the end, and that wasn't really that satisfying. What do you kind of your point there?
I think it works well as kind of a thing of two things. Of one, of someone who puts so much like insane pressure on themselves and such high expectations with their family. But I do think it also works with Azula is like definitely a her character, but like how well like almost like a reflection of like kind of paranoid uh world like dictators and like warlords in the past, of like especially during the last scene of like her downfall isn't much of a character like Zuko or even like say Jinx from Arcane, but much more so it's far closer to like say Ivan the Terrible or Alexander the Great, of like just falling into a state of depression and like after putting so much pressure, like not being able to open up to anyone, and like they just lash out, and at that moment it just like it fails for them, and so they don't know how to like respond back, and she's just like she kind of just ends up like just as like a like she does this to herself, but that is somewhat the tragedy that she wasn't able to see this coming.
Mm, yeah.
Because yeah, it, I kind of view Zula as a character who's gotten pretty much everything she's wanted growing up, as long as she kind of a proved to be like a great general and like a great like quote unquote child for Ozai, like a soldier. But then it's like reveal like what's going to happen when you give that child so much expectations and so much weight. Like eventually, like something's going to like snap, and like she's kind of crushed under the weight of her own like expectations of herself. Uh, which is why she's like I can't trust anyone. It's all about me, but that's also like her downfall.
Mm, yeah. And Ray Trudy says, kind of like she crumbles on the expectations while Zuko finds peace by discarding the expectations there. That you see. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. I mean, so much pressure is on her.
Have you?
Uh,
Yeah, you've seen Kung Fu Panda, the first one, right?
yeah.
It does remind me a lot of like kind of Tai Lun's backstory. More like he's like, I know I'm the Dragon Warrior. He puts like, I'm gonna be this, but then like he was told he can't be the Dragon Warrior. It's like, no, you can't do it. And it's like that set him over the edge, because he's like, trained my whole life for this, and I trained until like my bones cracked. Was it all for nothing? And so that's why he just lost it against like Shifu, and just kind of went on that rampage. He's still in the wrong, but you kind of understand like why all that pressure would just like drive him to that point.
Mm, yeah. And basically, we see what kind of Zula is at the end. She just kind of gets, I mean,
Mm.
locked up in kind of a mental kind of institution there, asylum,
Oh
basically.
yeah,
That
no, yeah, like straight up an asylum. Like she's even in a straitjacket in the comics.
Yeah. So that's kind of what the fate of kind of her character there at the end of there. You mentioned kind of one of your worst episodes with the Nightmare and Dreams episode. So that's where Aang kind of goes off on a spirit kind of quest journey where he's trying to decide whether or not he should kill the Fire Lord Ozai.
No, 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 that's the one before the invasion of the Black Sun.
Oh, before the oh yeah, that is the one before the invasion of the Black Sun there. Where they're doing that, and that's where they kind of get tricked. Um, there, and they knew the invasion was already going to be
Yeah,
coming.
I love
What
that.
What was the episode where he was figuring out whether or not he should do that?
That's like the, I think it might have been the start of Susan's Comet, or the first one. Uh,
Uh, yeah, I
I
think
don't.
it is.
Yeah,
I think it
it's.
maybe is. Yeah.
Mhm. I don't remember what it's called, but it's like maybe it's called the Fire Lord or something. But it's where they're Zuko's like right after the Amber Islands player, like Zuko's like, why you guys aren't doing anything? Like, why aren't you like making a move or like getting ready to fight Ozai? It's like the comet's coming. And like Aang's like, I'm not gonna fight Ozai during the comet. It's like
Yeah.
if I fight him now, we'll lose. But yeah, then it's like then Aang kind of vanishes. Aang vanishes. But it's like all that stuff is good, but it's like people like I do get why people are like not upset, but like the climax was kind of weak of how he beats uh Ozai.
Yeah. In that episode, yeah, with Sozin's Comet Part One, the Phoenix King there,
Yeah.
which is what Ozai
Okay.
dubs himself there when he is going to take over everything there, the Phoenix King. So yeah, so that's the episode. He goes and talks to his other past Avatar selves. He talks to Kyoshi. He talks to the other water bending Avatar. I'm blanking on his name at the moment.
Karuk?
Karuk. He talks to the other the Fire Nation Avatar before that was
Yeah.
immediately before him.
Roku.
Roku. Which a good flashback episode there they did of like
Yeah.
showing like his backstory and how he was actually best friends with
Mhm.
the great grandfather of Zuko there, which was nice. That was pretty cool. And that, do you think it was too much that they made it where Zuko was
Yeah.
related to the Avatar? You think?
Yeah, I bet, because the whole talk is like, Zuko, that's not your destiny. Your destiny isn't like determined by it, and you don't have to follow your father's orders. But it's like, actually, the whole time your destiny was to serve. It was actually to help Aang, because you're the great 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 grandson of Roku.
Yeah. So I thought that was maybe a little much there for them to kind of connect that. So he goes and And he even asked the air nomad avatar before him, Yang Chen. It's like, okay, so what should I do? Should I kill Ozai or not? And then all of them pretty much agree, like, yeah, you should just smoke him.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
pretty much.
they all just basically, yeah, yeah, I pretty much agree with that. Even though with some of them, like Yoshi, who's the only one we've seen probably the most of as an Avatar flashback
Yeah,
segment.
yeah. Other than maybe Roku, it's either her, it's either her or Roku.
Yeah. Yeah, who's we meet probably yeah, between those two we've seen most of. And she did have a run in with like Chin the Emperor who we saw in that episode there.
Mhm.
I think it was in book 2, which was the try Avatar Day.
Yeah,
Was there where they kind of put him on trial there, which she kind of didn't really
do
kill
anything?
him. It
No.
really she just kind of split the place there.
But she's like, I would have, but it's like you didn't. It's kind of
Yeah.
a problem in Avatar, the whole series of the, as a general side does kind of end up taking a bunch of responsibility off the Avatar, weirdly enough. It's like you actually don't know how to do it. Like even the Kyoshi novels, weirdly enough, where it's like, oh, this is a darker take on the series and stuff like that. Like Kyoshi, she might kill or like she might have more complex themes. And it's like kind of at the end, it's like she doesn't really kill. At best, it's like manslaughter or like super self defense. Uh, and yeah, it's that's actually why I liked kind of like Korra's take on Korra as the Avatar, especially as a political figure, and like because news is traveling so much more in Korra, uh, and stuff like that. And, like, there's a lot more debate about the Avatar's like purpose in that series. Yeah, the Avatar now would probably like not exist, like with social media being what it is.
And he get canceled or
No, yeah,
something.
cancel.
Like this causing destruction and everything like that. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, do we really still need the Avatar? Yeah, so it's kind of yeah, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, that goes because yeah, because you've read the comics of
I've
Avatar.
read the most of the comics, and I have read the Kyoshi books, which I would say are probably the second best like Avatar material out there, other than the main show.
Yeah. So do the other avatars feel different from each other when you go back?
kind of, but it is also like one of those things of like they kind of have they always have the same moral framing as the show of like God never ever is killing like a super bad evil person like that justified. There is a kind of like an oh shit moment where Kyoshi's like spoiler for the Kyoshi novel that people probably aren't going to read, but it's like she's agreed with this people like, oh, I'll help you. They're like, we'll help you if you do this, and they're like, okay, I'll do that. And it's like you have to assassinate a mayor who's like doing all this like vile shit, and she's like, yep, I'll do that. And it's like, but then she gets there, and like the political figure is actually a child, like a spoiled child who's like taking all the taxes. Like, oh shit, is Kyoshi gonna kill a kid? And no, she just scares him. But
He's
yeah,
like a little Joffrey or something.
a bit, but it's a bit more of a child of like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to give money to the people or whatever and stuff like that. Yeah, it's like I have to remind myself that like even though the Kyoshi novels are like 14 plus, like or stuff like that, they're not going to be like Berserk or anything like that. Whereas like you have to debate with these more like harsher moral stances or like Attack on Titan, where it's like, is it more moral to kill this person right now?
Yeah. So do you think it was pretty good bet because the way he kind of gets out of killing Fire Lord Ozai Aang is he learns energy bending from like the turtle, and then he ends up just taking away Ozai's bending ability. Do you think that was pretty good conclusion?
I think that's fine. I think it's a fine conclusion for this and the show. I won't say it's bad. I would say like there could have been a more interesting thing done. Even like even there's potentially like I was actually talking to Mac and he brought this up of like, what if Aang just learned like he clapped his hands and basically there was a flash and Ozai was gone, not even like dead. Like, what if he just vanished to the spirit world and was just trapped there? But it's like that's essentially killing him in the show. He's like, I did that to like take away to make sure like he wouldn't be able to threaten anyone anymore or like use his power as a dictator. Because the problem is also like it's kind of the problem you run into when you stumble into like a fantasy action show of like or like a JRPG of like where the villain is technically the emperor and the king, but throughout it when they're like technically most of the bad stuff they did but was because they just gave orders which is actually something that's explored in the comics a bit more. That there's like Ozai followers and like diehards, uh, but it's like it is a kid show, which is kind of excuse, but it's a very smart kid show. So it's like it can't really get into that level of talking about like, hey, Ozai never really did anything himself before the Sozin's comment. Uh, he really just like if Aang has to like if anything, Aang has to like deal with the generals and shit like that. But like it's that's probably not going to get explored during a kids show, especially at that time.
Right. Yeah, and sometimes there was death in the show because Jet was killed in book 2, so there was
Yeah.
that.
Also, it
Uh,
was the last episode. I do think you can probably get away with killing him.
what, Ozai or
Yeah, yeah, because that's the last episode of the series. It's like, yeah, why don't you just have Aang kill him? Like, not even like cold blooded, but
yeah. Well, I mean, I know he does. I mean, did you like him also when he stuck around in the comics, and then he like Zuko was able to ask him about his
yeah,
mom and everything like that?
Ozai is definitely more interesting in the comics. But it's like, he's fine for the most part.
Oh god.
uh, yeah, and there is a somewhat nice resolution with uh Zuko's mom. I don't remember Ursa.
Mm.
Uh, but it's like, yeah, it's one of those things of like when you kind of dissect the final how Aang gets that energy bending stuff like that, and like how the resolutions form. It doesn't crumble, but it's like, there's more good than bad here, but it's not like awful bad.
Ray from Shooty said it's like when Marvel tried to retcon Peter Parker's parents to have been Shield agents killed by Red Skull. Makes
Yeah, I
zero
think he
sense.
was talking about when we brought up Zuko being like uh
Yeah.
Roku's grandkid. Yeah.
And then Ray from Shooty also said if that kid was Joshua, he would have cut his head off there. He also said in the Ember Island play, don't they make a comment on how Jet's death was ambiguous?
Mhm.
Yeah, I get a little bit. There's a line I think Sokka says like, I
It
guess.
was really unclear.
Yeah, it was kind of unclear there. I guess they didn't want to fully commit to it or anything, but I think he is. I think it was that he died at that
Mhm.
because there was that line by Toph who said that he was
He's lying.
lying.
Yeah.
So I think he did die there. I
Mhm.
think. So you said that so book 3 was a little bit weaker maybe for you. Maybe trying to go back to season 1. How would you rank the seasons for you?
Book two, maybe book three, and then book one. I say book one and three are kind of like a toss up because book one, is pretty good for a kid show. It does have like some like really great episodes, but there's really just kind of like two that kind of come to mind. No, I'd say it's fair saying book two, book three, book one, uh, because like it's book one doesn't also have the thing of like it's a kid show starting out for the most part. And a lot of people were even like the show doesn't really get good until the storm, where we find out a lot about like Aang's past and Zuko's past as well.
Yeah. That's pretty much how I would kind of rank the seasons as well. And I think season 1 of Avatar, the characters that you meet there, a lot of the kind of episodic kind of feel of it,
Mhm.
like adventure of the week type thing, does come back into play book 3 because you see a lot of the characters that you met in book 1 come back here. Like for instance, with the White Lotus, like you see King Boomy and you see the sword teacher there, the sword master there, Sokka come back, be in this and then make an appearance there. Did you kind of like that with the White Lotus and then some of the characters from book 1 coming back?
I liked it for yeah. I thought it was fun for the most part. Yeah, it's one of those things of like it's kind of hard to determine like Iroh's age because when I first watched the show as a kid, I thought Iroh was like Zuko's grandfather, just because of like the grayness in his hair, stuff like that, like his look. But it's like, it's just he probably just aged faster than Ozai.
Yeah, because I don't know how much older he's supposed to be than Ozai. I don't know.
I think like 10 years.
10 years.
But
Okay.
yeah, so it's a bit unclear in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's stuff. But yeah, I think it's like when I rank them, it's not like, oh, I think book three is god awful. I think book three is good, but like, and like I think book one is like, yeah, pretty good as well. But it's just like book two is like definitely that show and like kind of the creator's peak as well of like this is like it's such like a good moment and all that stuff and like it has all the some of the most impactful, like dramatic scenes in the show and stuff like that. Like this episode, Zuko alone. Like I remember a lot of people rank that as like their favorite episode, which is fascinating because it's not really a plot driven episode at all. Uh, you can technically cut out this episode and like no information will be lost, but it's just so well done in like a character exploration of Zuko, like his past and like his mentality, that like it just works perfectly.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much how I would rank it there, and I think a little bit I'd rank why I would rank 2 above 3 is because I think also 3 is missing a lot of Uncle Iroh, who I think
Yeah.
is missing him very much so there. And then book 1, where I rank book 2 over book 1 is book 1 does have a lot of adventure of the week type stuff
Mhm.
there, a lot of like, okay, there, what are we gonna do? And going all these different places, which again does add back up if back to book 3 there, them having all these adventures and meeting all these different places and seeing what the Fire Nation has done, you know what I mean, to all these different,
Oh
places
yeah.
and kingdoms. So I think that's very necessary, but
Book two definitely becomes more complex and like its political themes and like heaviness. And I'm not saying Avatar's the best when it comes to that. There are shows and series I would say like tackle politics much better, like with much more nuance. Not just because it's a kid show, just because it's kind of my opinion on like creators a bit. But like I do like book two is where like things get a bit heavier and stuff like that, and like uh, it definitely has the biggest oh shit moments of the series.
yeah, like that moment right there, yeah,
Yeah,
was
yeah,
yeah.
where Azula stops Aang's heart.
Which and again, that adds because you learned about, like, if he dies in the Avatar state, that's it.
Oh
There
yeah,
there's no more Avatars after that, which adds to that. So what would be your final thoughts and rating for, book 3 of Avatar?
book three. I think book three is like a very good story. Uh, I do think it suffers from final act syndrome that happens in like a lot of series where like the climax or the third final part or like the final season of a show might be the least interesting. This happens with a lot of shows, such as like Breaking Bad. It happens with that. Kind of happened with The Wire. I think. Uh, I know I'm listing like adult shows, but like yeah, in general, there are. I loved how it wrapped everything up. Well, wrapped up most things while still leaving like some possibilities for an adventure in the future. More. I do think the climax is weak, especially compared to book two. But I do think the climax is better than book one. Uh, and I think Zuko's arc is pretty much near perfection.
Mm, yeah. And do you like all the endings for the characters?
Uh, yeah, I'd say mostly, especially with like how core expands some of it. I'm trying to think if like there was a character in the show I just I do think Aang kind of like the ending of uh like how book three left of like we're all done, like we stopped Ozai, and Zuko gives that speech of like there's now peace among the land and stuff like that. Like even though nobody worked, it's like we're all harmony. I do think that's a bit weak, as like I do think it almost ends on like too much of a happy note. Like it's like I do think there should be a framing of like we have more work to be done and stuff like that. But again, kids show, but sort of it's still better than most kid shows. So it's like I give it half a punishment you would of like a normal show.
Ray from Mature said that scene when Zuko apologized to Iroh might be my favorite moment in the whole series.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a
That's
beautiful moment.
really great. I think mine would be when Zuko is like with Appa, and Iroh has to just give that speech to him. It's like, is this really what you want? Like, make up your mind.
Yeah, that was. I mean, they are always really great moments.
Mhm.
Iroh is one of the MVPs of the show for sure. And they says, "What do you guys think of Ozai as a villain?" I think he's just okay.
Fine. I think he's a less. I think there is a more interesting version of this villain out there. I've seen like a bunch of Emperor villains that are done a lot better. If I were to like list a villain I think was done better, I would say Lord Shen from Kung Fu Panda 2 is
Mm,
just like perfect in my opinion. It's like just a way better Ozai than this Ozai. Like they both even have like the Japan theme of like basically being the three alls policy and stuff like that. And like
mm,
very much a metaphor for like Japan's invasion of China. Uh, but everything about Lord Shen is just like Oh my god, what a great like I would consider him one of the best villains, weirdly enough. Like even if you compare him to like not just anime villains, but just villains in general, like from books and from movies. Like everything about him just like is perfect. Just the design, the voice, the motive, the way he moves. Uh yeah, there was behind the scenes. It's like Lord Chen was so complicated to animate it because he was like animating six characters all at once.
Yeah. And I finally saw this for the first time. Kung Fu Panda 2. I'm gonna be in my review of it tomorrow. And then Lord Shin in this, who's the villain of this movie, voiced by Gary Oldman.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um, and he's a peacock.
yeah,
In this. Let me see if I can get some of him in the trailer here. If I can find him
yeah,
a little bit in the trailer.
yeah. The trailers do not do these movies justice.
It seems like he's not really much in the trailer, but yeah, he's like a peacock there. Villain has also kind of like a similar kind of fate there of like, hey, he's destined to like, hey, you're gonna be defeated by a warrior, black and
Mhm.
white,
Yeah,
and then that leads him to basically almost genocide all the pandas
yeah.
there that you kind of see.
He is way more like motive, but also just he has that moment with Poe at the end where he's just like, "How'd you do it?" It's like, just keep your shoulders loose. You gotta stay on your toes. It's like, not that. How'd you find inner peace? I took everything away from you. It's like scars heal. It's like they don't heal, but they shape. It's like you gotta let your pain go to a degree.
Yeah, and this is good design though.
Oh
Really nice.
yeah, like both threatening, funny, and like I love his like like his talons stuff like that, and like the fact that his feathers even look like the Japanese flag a bit.
Oh yeah, they do. Oh yeah, that is really nice. Yeah, so yeah, I like that. I like the design of the character too.
Oh yeah, they're all good. I it took me a while to notice that Poe technically has a mustache for a panda. He has a bunch of
Oh,
like little black dots.
oh, got the little peach fuzz on
Yeah,
there. But yeah, so yeah, Ozai is just okay. I don't
yeah,
think
he's fine.
he's
He's a serviceable villain for this
yeah,
kind of series. I
yeah.
you know
That's about it. So with the fate, so Aang obviously he beat the Fire Lord, took away his bending ability, put him in prison. Azula got put in prison. She got put in an asylum. You see that Zuko he became the Fire Lord. He took over the nation. Then he's going to lead the nation into peace. Then he ended up with May. There at the
maybe
end.
he had a kid, but we don't know with who.
Okay, yeah. So I think maybe he ended up with May there. So I think okay. Then Ty Lee, she ended up being a Kyoshi warrior. Then with Aang, he ended up with Katara at the end.
Had a bunch of kids.
Had three, right? Had three
Yeah,
kids,
three.
three. And then eventually had some great grandchildren there. But I don't think he wasn't alive to see it. Was he alive to see his great?
No, he was not
Okay,
alive to see his grandchildren.
okay. So there was that. Then what happened with Toph? She ended up, I guess,
She,
becoming.
she opened a metal bending school eventually when Zuko and Aang made an agreement to basically make Republic City. She became the metal bending police chief.
Yeah. And then I kind of talked about that a little bit online and said whether that was in character for her to be or
I say
not.
it's a bit more in character than people would think. Because it's kind of like Toph doesn't like to be coddled, but she doesn't like to be. She does also like to be in charge. So it's like,
Mm,
yeah, I don't see this as like a huge stretch. Yeah, uh, Sokka became a judge. I'm not sure what else he did.
yeah. And I don't think he didn't have any kids.
As far as we know, he has no kids.
Yeah. And I don't know if he married Suki or not. I don't know.
Yeah, it's left ambiguous.
Yeah.
Trying to, yeah, and Katara, she's one of the few characters still alive. By Korra, where she's like, uh, she's she just reside in the Southern Water Tribe for now, and she was actually Korra's mentor.
Yeah.
So that was cool and stuff like that.
Yeah. Toph is still alive. Zuko is still alive. I think Zuko's the only male member of Team
Yeah,
Avatar. He's still alive.
I assume Sokka was killed.
I think that's what it's kind. I think that's what it's. I think maybe implied that he died or he was
Yeah,
murdered or something. I think that's kind of maybe implied. But yeah, so that's pretty much the fate of kind of pretty much most people. Then I, yeah, of course, Uncle Iroh he probably passed
oh
away.
yeah,
He passed away.
he will. But yeah, he will, like even just from like natural causes probably.
Yeah. So you had that. So yeah. So yeah. What would be your rating for book three? It would be. Would you give it like a peak or this is
I would
cinema?
I would give it a this is cinema.
This is cinema. Okay. And then Rain from Cherry says, "Doesn't Aang like choke to death on a wall?"
No, no,
Uh,
he just dies because he was basically in the Avatar state when he was in the iceberg, and that exuded so much energy that when like it basically cut his lifespan a bit. So that's
oh
why he dies very young. Uh,
yeah, because I think he died when he was like 66.
60? It had to be 60.
Yeah. So that's why he kind of died a little bit earlier than maybe some other people. Yeah. Yeah. It's because yeah, he was in the Avatar state for over 100 years. He was
Yeah,
frozen. So biologically, like he was like 100+ years
yeah,
old.
yeah. It's like some versions of Captain America, where like after like sometimes like yeah, the super soldier kept him alive in the iceberg, but after some time he just passed.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, I would also give it a peak. I'd give it a high peak. I mean, I can see your problems with the ending there of kind of how it wraps up everything. Maybe it is a little too kind of like, hey, everything's good, everything's all right now.
Yeah.
I
My
think they do.
problems, yeah. I think my problems are when I bring up my problems, it's mainly because so much has been said about Avatar. It's such a good show that it's like, yeah, here's some stuff that like a lot of people don't talk about, but like I do understand why the show still has such an impact with people to this day. Like why so many people are like close to it. Uh, so
Mm, yeah, it's an amazing show. I mean,
yeah,
definitely one of the best animated shows ever, or just one of the best shows. Period. I mean, it's
mhm,
got a lot of great arcs in it. Got a lot of great episodes
mhm,
in it. Great dialogue. Great
yeah,
emotional moments.
yeah, and
Um, yeah.
yeah, it was also it was funny seeing basically because it blew my mind that Mac had never seen the show because he would have been like the perfect age to watch the show when it came out. But like if you want to check out his video, it's great on it. It's an interesting video of like someone with like fresh eyes kind of watching the show and kind of like his take on it. Uh yeah, it's just like a show that has like like a almost like perfect series, but dang it, just check it out. Check it out. Check out Avatar, folks.
Yeah.
Or rewatch it because I know most people who watch this would have watched it at one point, but it's like one of those things that like you can like it as a kid, but as an adult, like you can appreciate it way more.
Mm. Yeah, it still holds up. I think
Hmm,
it
hmm.
still holds even as an adult. Yeah, it
I
still
mean,
holds
even
up.
just look at this animation; it's just beautiful.
Yeah, it's hard to replicate something like this maybe in a TV show, like the how you do the martial arts, then plus the bending and the
Yeah,
special effects. It's maybe hard to do that in a live action format, but we'll see if they can maybe do it in the live action show.
who knows? Might be great.
Yeah, did you see that clip of on the live
Boomy.
action? Yeah, Boomy. How what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's just kind of the thing that you run into of that's just the limitations of live action for now, and like even with like Boomy's whole like deal of like old man who's secretly jacked, like that's a very like Master Roshi kind of transformation. But one of the benefits of like comics and animation is that like you can have like such a scrawny character take on that physique and have it look more jarring. But then in this, it's like, yeah, you're not gonna get that level of intimidation. Just the his boulder looks way slower. Then again, most trailers like aren't that great nowadays, so
Mhm.
uh, that
Yeah.
might be a thing. Uh, yeah, I mean, I hope the whole cast has fun. I hope like this attracts more people to Avatar. We can like see like they can see like other Avatar stuff, like maybe the books or like I hope like even I hope like it even like attracts people to Korra because I remember when Korra came on Netflix, like that went to the first of trending, but it dropped fairly quickly. uh,
Mm. And this is a little bit of it right here that you see.
oh yeah,
Huh.
look at that. Yeah,
So you see kind
was
of like
this delayed or something? Wasn't there like an issue with that? Like it's meant to come out sooner, but like
the show. I don't think so. I didn't hear anything about it being
no.
pushed back. Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's coming out when it's supposed to.
Yeah.
At least I could be wrong, but
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah, it's a great show. Do you have any hopes of anything they change from it from the original source material? Like
um
something to improve on?
well, I think Ozai would be good to improve on that. You introduced him early. It is played by Daniel Day Kim, so maybe they'll give him a
Yeah.
lot
He's
to
been
do.
getting a
So
lot of memes as of late.
yeah, a lot of people thirsting over Fire Lord Ozai, so there's that.
Yeah.
And good for him. He's like in his
Yeah.
50s, I think.
Yeah.
That actor.
Yeah. I do wonder if they're gonna kind of tackle Iroh in a different way, kind of show more of his flaws as a person, because the show does kind of gloss over the fact that he was a Fire Nation general for a long time. Like people like if Iroh was a real person, he would definitely be part of like the Japanese Sino War, where he was part of some bad war crimes, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, but yeah, yeah, it's just one of those things. But like, yeah, I'm hopeful for it. I'm hopeful it's good. I love the cast. The cast looks great. Uh, yeah, and Danny Pudi's going to be in it. The guy from Community.
Oh yeah,
He's
he's gonna be the cabbage guy.
no, I think he's the inventor, like the guy who
Oh, the inventor. Oh right.
Eastern or Western Temple.
Oh
Where
yeah,
mhm,
the ones that took over the air nomad. Yeah, and kind of took over there, right? Yeah.
mhm.
Okay. So yeah, that'd be awesome. So this, yeah, it's got some decent, yeah, decent cast, yeah, people there that you have in the show. Like I say, yeah, that would be good. More of like Uncle Iroh, his war criminal history, I guess, showing that. Because he was like, what was his nickname?
The Dragon of the West
The Dragon of the
and
West.
like
Maybe.
the Breaker of Bossing Say or something like that.
Uh,
Uh, but
so, which I don't think they're probably going to get into all that in 'cause only 8 episodes. It's kind of tough to do all that.
yeah, of course, and I have sympathy for the writers, of course. Like, goddamn, streaming services have kind of wrecked uh the romance of television to a degree. Of like, that's why we can't really have a sitcom nowadays of like a proper good like office level sitcom, because nowadays uh the standard is so insanely high that you can't really plant a seed for it to grow. Like, a lot of people forget, like, because when people bring up like sitcoms they really like, they bring up like, I don't know, like The Office, and
Mm.
of course there were like exceptions like Arrested Development, but it's like a lot of the most iconic sitcoms kind of like grew over time. Like Seinfeld is a great example. Like, you need to have it should be okay for a show to have like a rough first start, and but now we're at that level of like, I won't put it all on like the Stranger Things, but like, because Stranger Things was so popular and had like 8 episodes, Netflix and like streaming services are like, you have to have that level of popularity or else like we're gonna can your show right away. It's like, you should allow failure with your sitcoms to a degree. It's like it will overplay, because that was my. Have you seen Blockbuster? That sitcom on Netflix?
Was that the one with who was the dude
Randall
from
Park,
Randall Park? Was that,
JB
yeah?
Smoove was in it.
And the girl from Brooklyn Nine-Nine was also in it, right?
Yeah, yeah. The thing is, I like this cast and all that stuff. It's like, and the sitcom, it was not a good show. It was unfunny, say for JB Smoove, but it's also like, I can totally see a sitcom growing off this. Like, this is like prime office material, but it's like, just because it didn't get those numbers, it's like we have to cancel it right away. And yeah, I even made this point not today of like, because Venture Bros had its 21st anniversary, and that's, if I were to list my shows, Venture Bros might be my favorite show of all time. But
Mm.
the thing is, the first season is definitely the rockiest season of Venture Bros. But it's like, because it was able to plant and like the creators were able to learn from their mistakes, like then they were able to like grow from that. But like, we just never get that opportunity with sitcoms or TV shows anymore. Uh, Even with like, because people brought this up with like Has Been Hotel, like it only has 8 episodes, but it's like, yeah, you should probably give the creators more, or at least more time to like let the artistic vision flow through more, instead of just like, we gotta get those numbers.
Well, so see if they can. I mean, that's pretty sure they can jam all that material into 8
Yeah,
episodes. Yeah.
yeah. How long? Avatar is going to be about like what, 50 to 45 minutes? I'm guessing.
I think I saw something on Twitter. They said the episodes will vary. Like some will be 40 minutes, some will be just 30 something minutes.
Okay.
Some will kind of
Hmm.
vary, I think, in time.
Yeah, I think it'll
Um,
be like the One Piece live action. If I'm going to be honest, like I think it's gonna be cute, and it's gonna be like a good way to get people into the source material. But it's like, at a certain level, it's never gonna be able to really get on par with the original.
yeah,
But yeah, it's like, I I would love to see like a show, like even just have like a special, like a spin-off, or not even a spin-off, but just like a special, like, hey, we're doing a 45-minute, like this is what this is gonna be like, or like almost like how Mickey Mouse would have like almost an adult like specials or movies and stuff like that. Like we're putting him in this scenario. It's like I would love a show like Avatar or like a show like a lot of people like diss on like the One Piece movies, but like Film Red is fun because it's like it's Oda basically crafting an adventure like for the characters. Like you want to see your characters go on an adventure. Like that's the fun of a series like this, and that's the fun of fantasy. uh,
But here's the run times here. So the first episode will be over an hour. Then you have
mhm.
like 48 minutes, 52 minutes. So each will kind of be close to an hour. Kind of. Some are 50, some are
Yeah.
44. So that's a little bit there.
Yeah, I love the actor for Iroh. Uh, he was
Which
on, yeah, he was on Kim's Convenience.
yeah,
But yeah, he looks great.
I think that's a good choice for Iroh.
Mhm.
I think it's pretty good. That's a good choice. I think he's gonna do well. So.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Are you excited for any other Avatar news in general, like other potential TV shows, or do you want the movie in the future, or are you like you're done?
Didn't they say that they were working on like a Kyoshi movie or animated movie or something like
I
that? I think
remember,
Raven from Maturity told me that, or
I remember them saying they're having a movie in the works. I don't. I think it's with the adult gang.
okay, it's gonna be the adult game.
Yeah,
Okay,
there might be something with Kit, but I'm not. Where, but it's like, yeah. I mean, I would love to see more, just like not like an expanded universe, but like I would just love to see like an adventure every now and then with these characters.
yeah. Because I don't read the comics. I don't read the novels or anything like that. You said they're not really worth
The
that.
novels are much better than the comics. I wouldn't say the novel is better than better than the TV show, but it's pretty good. Uh,
Okay,
it's probably the best romance they're gonna get between Kyoshi and Ragni, Firebending Gal. I wouldn't even say like it's that great of a romance, but that is the most interesting romance in the show.
Raven from Maturity said they're doing 3 movies: an original cast one, a core one, and a standalone Kyoshi one.
Mm, mm.
Okay, I'd be
Okay.
I'd be interested to see those. Yeah.
Yeah.
I still think there's still more material because like Legend of Korra came out what in it ended in what
2011?
2011 and then ended what 2018 or something
14. Yeah.
14. So that was a while. That was over 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
that was 10 years ago. So yeah, I mean, I'd like to see them with the shows at least complete the cycle. Like, okay, you go to Earth and then you go to Fire and then you complete the whole cycle of the avatars there that you see. Um, yeah, and if they are doing 3 movies, I'd like to see that as well. Them doing the 3 movies there, as long as it's from the original creators and
Yeah.
they, you know,
Are
they,
you aware if any of the movies are going to be like theatrical movies, or are they going to be like, where are these on Nickelodeon or Netflix, etc.?
yeah. Because if they were to come to stream, wouldn't it be Paramount Plus? Because Paramount owns Nickelodeon, right?
Maybe it's so complicated nowadays.
Yeah, I think Paramount owns
Yeah.
Nickelodeon. I think so. It would kind of
Yeah. I remember like a few weeks ago, I was just trying to watch Kung Fu Panda 2, and like I had to like basically go on a wild goose chase just to find it because like Netflix has Kung Fu Panda, but they don't have Kung Fu Panda 1 and 3 in the spin-off series. I looked it up and it's like, oh, it's on HBO Max. I went to HBO Max. It doesn't have it anymore. I'm like, oh, I'll go to Amazon. It wasn't on Amazon. It was on Amazon Paramount Plus subscription. And it's like, this is just way too much to go through right now.
yeah. And I'm sure he said pretty sure they'll be on Paramount Plus. Do you think they would do well if they went to theaters? Do you think they'd make quite a bit of money?
I think almost like the Venture Bros movie, like if it aired like in a specific kind of theater for like a week, and I think you could show like that would be huge because people underestimate like how big the Avatar fandom is. Like I'd go out on a limb and say it's like it's on par with like say the Percy Jackson or like the Harry Potter fandom in
Really?
terms of like size. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like maybe put one out for like a weekend, just see how big that is. I'm like, oh, we'll expand it for for like 2 weeks or something like that.
Yeah. Or they could maybe do a deal with maybe Netflix and do it
Maybe
like a limited theatrical run and then
like
put it on the
yeah,
platform or something like
like
that.
Rise of Ninja Turtles that had like a Netflix movie, but it released in some movie theaters.
Yeah. Rachel says, and it is the original creators when they left this live action adaptation, they started working on these animated movies instead. Oh, that's good.
Mhm. Hmm.
They can put more attention to that, putting that out, making that good, which I would definitely be up to seeing there. Do you think we ever get like a live action Korra? Seems like everybody just focuses on the original series. Nobody cares about Korra or what?
Yeah, I don't think we'll get a live action Korra. There is a possibility if like this Netflix show does really really well, we might get a live action Korra, but it might be totally different. I don't want to see them reboot Korra, but I would love to see some more side adventures with the group. Correct, like granted, Korra is like such a it's considered such like kind of a mixish thing that it's like I'm not sure how much the creators would want to return to that or like almost like a reboot series of Korra, but it's like, is that really in the Avatar's like MO? Uh, that I do remember some of the creators went on to they made Dragon Prince, which is that's a show. Yeah,
I don't. I've heard of it. I don't. I've never seen it
yeah,
though.
I really don't like it, but like it's very mixed among the fans. But like at the same like that Dragon Prince is almost like it's a fantasy night show, but it's like very much made for like people who are specifically fans of Avatar. Not saying like it's going to like be as good as Avatar, or like be like, hey, this is kind of like Avatar. Like if you didn't see Avatar, you'll like this. But it's like the references and like what the characters tackle and like stuff like that. Like it's there's very obvious parallels to Avatar with
Mm,
Dragon Prince to the point where characters will just say catchphrases from the Avatar show.
really? Okay. Interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
Do you like this animation?
I think it gets better in the later seasons, but this is definitely when they were working it out. Yeah, it's not bad, but it's like there are better like kind of 3D shows out there. But uh,
Interesting. So yeah.
yeah,
So yeah. Avatar: The Last Airbender.
yeah,
Finally done. Reviewed all the books there, and we'll review the live action series when it comes out
yeah,
this
yeah,
Thursday.
yeah. I hope
Uh,
it's good.
you gonna be watching?
Maybe.
Yeah. Just a maybe, yeah. Are they gonna wait for word of mouth first? Or?
Yeah, or like maybe for friends, like, hey, do you want to watch this with us? Like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll at least watch a few clips online, but
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, not gonna lose much. Hey, the anime series is always will be there and
mhm,
always
of
will be.
course,
Yeah,
I do wonder if that's almost their angle of like when we put out the Netflix live action, that will also drive people to the animated one that's on Netflix now.
yeah. I wonder if it's spiked since the live
That's a
action.
good question
I wonder. It probably
because I
has.
know actually I rewatched Korra because of that. It was like the first time in like 5-ish years I decided to rewatch Korra. It's like, oh yeah, uh, some of it works better, some of it doesn't. It's always like about kind of retrospective that you have with the series.
Yeah. Do you think so? If they ever did a reboot live action version, there's more to fix with Korra than there is last
Yeah,
season.
it's definitely more to tackle, especially with kind of because it happens in Korra a lot more because the show was even like, hey, we're going to be more political. And it's like the way the show kind of handles politics in Korra is a lot more dicier than Avatar. The reason why Avatar was able to get away with a lot of its politics was because it was kind of like a background thing.
Mm,
But the way some of Korra's politics, it's definitely a bit more timely. Some of it I do think is better than like what other people online would like say it is, but it's almost they almost have like I would say like the creators have like a Ryan Johnson understanding of like politics and kingdoms and like political structures of like dictators are bad, but democracy is good.
mm, okay. Yeah. It does make because I haven't seen it in a while. I did remember having a lot of issues with Korra.
Yeah,
I don't think it's as strong as Avatar Last
yeah. I
Airbender.
remember recent like not too long ago the whole non-bending equalist movement was people started talking about that a lot more. It's like, hey, it's kind of fucked up that you describe the civil rights leader as like kind of a more terrorist figure or like a more evil figure, like a darker figure
Mm,
with Amon. It's one of those things that when you think about the metaphor, it's like, yeah, does this really work?
mm.
Uh, yeah,
That's
yeah.
a great. That's a great episode. I
Oh
like
yeah,
the episode where they do like the first Avatar. I think that episode is really good. So it's a lot of great episodes.
it was. Book two was animated by studio. It was animated by both a Korean and a Japanese studio, which is why at times their like characters are off bottle. But I love the look of like the spirit realm where it goes very much like Studio Ghibli.
Mm. Oh. It does, yeah, I mean, now that because this was in 2012, 2011, the
Yeah, yeah.
animation definitely
Oh
is,
no, totally. Yeah, I would say I do think the action scenes are and like set pieces are better than Avatar for the most part.
mm,
Maybe not all of them, but like a lot of them are like really good in Korra.
yeah, there we go. Alright, yeah, and if they do another one, I guess final thing of the night, because it's gonna go more into the future, if you have to do another Avatar, I mean, do you like that idea of Avatar being more in the future or
Not as much to be honest. Especially with like technology and like granted I do get technology would probably advance to our times by the earth bending avatar, and maybe even a bit more so because they have bending for like for their infrastructure and like engineering. But it's one of those things of like avatars always has steampunk aesthetic, but like at what point is it gonna like is the technology gonna like almost overcome the sci-fi the fantasy elements? Like when will the fantasy just straight up become sci-fi in this?
yeah, I don't know, maybe you could keep still the steampunk
Maybe.
kinda aesthetic and make it kinda almost
I
futuristic.
yeah, maybe. I mean, one of my favorite series, Dragon Ball, basically went from cartoon fantasy to sci-fi, and like that's one of the most famous series on the planet. So
Which one is that?
Dragon
Oh,
Ball,
Dragon
Dragon
Ball.
Ball Z, where it's like, we're just dealing with like demons and weird stuff for now, but then it's like now we're dealing with space emperors. So
Uh,
who knows? It might be great.
well, we're interested in making do a show about the Avatar getting canceled on Twitter,
Hell yeah,
Avatar meets social media there.
yeah.